This is the Citrus County Planning and Development Commission public hearing for November 4th, 2021. If you would like to join us at this time, I invite you to please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, please give us the grace to be understanding, patient, and tolerant. With these attributes, we can conduct our work in a manner which will be pleasing to Thee, our county, and its residents. In the Lord's name, Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
The following Planning and Development Commission members are present this morning. Michael Facemeyer, Chair. David Bramlett, First Vice Chair. Robert Bass, Second Vice Chair. Richard Barnes, James Royce, Kurt Stone, Carol Scragg, Alternate, and School Board Representative Chuck Dixon.
Thank you. If any person decides to appeal a decision made by the Commission with respect to any matter considered at this hearing, he or she will need a record of the proceedings, and for such purpose, he or she may need to ensure that a verbatim record of the proceedings is made, which record will include testimony and evidence upon which the appeal is to be based. During the public portion of this hearing, individuals will be given 3 minutes, and representatives of an organization will be given 5. When anyone wishing to speak comes to the podium, please complete a yellow form and hand it to the recording secretary. Please print your name, address, and the number of the application for which you are speaking. The yellow forms can be found at the podium by the door. If representing an organization, a letter of authorization must accompany the speaker. Comments will be limited to the topics being heard. Please state your name, spell your last name, and give your address for the taped record. This is an opportunity for the public to come forward and address the Commission on any topics that they choose. Seeing no one, I'll declare the public portion of this meeting closed. We do not have any minutes to approve. Staff announcements.
Yeah, 2 items, sir. First, I'll introduce our new planning coordinator, Vicki Austin, over there sitting next to Susan. You can wave. This is our
Welcome,
first PDC meeting. She comes to us from the purchasing department in the county. And also, we do have our county attorney via Teams. There's not really a hand-waving idea, but I think she hears us and she can jump in. Miss Lynn, can you hear us? Maybe not.
I can.
There you go.
There we
So
go.
she's available. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Michael, do you have anything?
Yeah, a couple items. Wanted to let the commission know that on the 9th of November, the county commission will be holding a workshop to discuss variances as well as waterfront setbacks. So I encourage y'all to attend or watch online, or because whatever happens in those meetings, directly or indirectly, we'll all be dealing with those. And also that as we've spoke earlier, or I told y'all earlier, we had 3 RFQs for the interchange management areas, the Suncoast Parkway, to do some consulting services. Well, we have released all those. We've got responses, and we've shortlisted all the firms for the 3 different interchanges. And on the 8th of this month, we're going to begin discussing scope of work and timing with the consultants. And then we'll bring that officially to the board to have them hopefully approve or give us another direction to take.
Michael, would that be to, the end goal of that would be to do an analysis and possible change similar to what we did in around the Cardinal interchange?
So the consulting services will be a look at all 3 interchanges to see if there's any Cardinal additional comprehensive plan amendments that need to take place, and then the 2 other ones, 44 and 486, as well as land development code updates to implement the policy that we've got through the comp plan and direction from the board and the planning commission.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Could you tell us who the shortlisted firms are?
I can provide you all the information. The two that came out for Cardinal and 486 is Wade Trim, and then CHW for 44 was Wade Trim, and then 486 right now is CHW, but that's kind of unofficial at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, what time is the meeting on the 9th?
8 a.m.
Thank you, Michael. Time has arrived for, we skipped over ex parte communication. Joanna, are you going to do that, or?
Ms. Lynn, do you want me to do that easier for you?
Yes, please. I'm having a hard time talking this morning.
No problem, thank you. And we'll ask the board if they had any ex parte communication, and we'll start with Ms. Scraggs.
Yes, two. 2107, 2111, site visits.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Stone?
None.
None.
None. Site visits on all except CU 21-12.
None.
Site visits on all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Time has arrived for public hearing on CU 21-12.
Yes, good morning. This request is to allow for horses, a barn, and stalls on vacant land within 500 feet of the primary residence. This is an aerial view of the subject properties. A view of the property from South Eeyore Point. And looking north on South Eeyore Point. This is looking across Eeyore Point, and you're looking to the east. Looking east again on Eeyore Point. Looking west on South Eeyore, and this is the area between lots 23 and 24. And the site plan as submitted by the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stillwell, the floor is yours.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Clark Stillwell. My professional address is 320 South Highway 41, the Brandon Bank Building in Inverness, Florida, and I represent John and Virginia Cullum. I have to tell you, this is my first conditional use application for horses in my career. And the reason I'm even involved was when Mr. and Mrs. Cullum bought this property, the representation to them was that they could have horses in the multiple listing portion of the and as represented orally to them. So they closed, and Mrs. Cullum went in to pull a permit for her barn and was told no. The fact of the matter is that all the properties are coastal lakes, and the county code under section 3730 requires a conditional use for if you have a certain number of horses. So on the two lots that are vacant adjacent to the lot that is improved with a single family house, they have requested the right to put up to 6 horses and a barn structure. As you can see, the property is vacant. It is fenced. It is bordered by an easement, access way. The house is within 500 feet. That is one of the criteria under the code. The code requires that you have a certain element of size, and we're going to combine the two lots per the staff report, and that will meet the minimum size requirement for 6 horses. Now, the barn size was based upon what I'm going to call best management practices. I spoke with Ms. Cullum, and then we spoke with county agricultural folks, and they indicated how big each stall should be and what type of stalls you should have, tack room, feed room, and an area where the horses are outside the barn. What's that called?
Pastor?
Okay, there's a pasture and then there's a confined area. It's on the site plan. Obviously, I've not owned horses. So that was the application, and we believe that we've met all of the conditional use criteria, and the conditional use criteria are outlined both in our application and in our staff report. And it says They are the plan and land use intensity and indensity. Again, we meet that question and the staff report says so. Compatibility with the use in adjacent areas. This is a rural area. If you drove out that way, there's a lot of people that have all different types of all animals. And again, a small barn, less than 4% of the lot size. I emphasize that. Less than 4% of the lot size is not an intrusion to anyone. The question then, that third question is, are there any off-site impacts? Not from 6 horses, and certainly this is not a commercial operation, okay? Private use. Meets density and bulk, impacts the traffic and pedestrian, and I'm going to speak to that later. Fire hazard, that's not applicable. Noise, odor, glare, vibration off-site, again, parcels of sufficient size to handle 6 horses per code. Does it prevent the adjacent property authorized use of the property? Obviously, the abutting lots can still be used for single-family residential, and the barn is going to be built on these 2 vacant lots and not anywhere else. It doesn't violate any law, and it does not impact or impair public facilities or in any form or fashion. So it's basically a small barn, 6 horses on 3 acres, which is already an improved pasture. The staff report goes through and finds these consistent. Now, I want to walk you just briefly through the code. Section 704 on a conditional use says your decision is based on the criteria of the LDC. So, and those criteria are set forth in section 4500C, which is the conditional use standards, and we just walked through those. And the staff report has a positive finding on each of those. The code in 45B1 and 2 states when an applicant meets the objective criteria stated in the LDC, there's a presumption on their part they're entitled to the conditional use. And the staff report's entitled to great weight. You know that as a matter of law, and we've met that presumption. The burden shifts then to those who would object to the conditional use to show by competent substantial evidence that we haven't met the objective criteria of the code. And I keep emphasizing the word of the code, okay? Because I'm advised that there's an issue about this easement and whether or not you should address specific conditions which address and are solely related to that easement. And I go back and say to you, the easement is not part of the code in any form or fashion. So if someone asks you to say, hey, you have to protect our easement, that's not for this forum or this venue. There's other places where that can be resolved. And the second thing I would say to you is the code says in section 1402 that whatever you do doesn't abrogate, obligate, or interfere with any easement rights. And this is conditional use isn't going to interfere with any easement rights. We're not building a barn in that easement. Now, and I want to go further and say to you, yes, my client's deed has an easement in it, okay? But you need to look at Exhibit I-1, which is the original minor subdivision, which shows that for and all the lots lying north of that easement road, done in 1974. And then if you look at Exhibit I-2, which is the second unrecorded subdivision done in, I believe, 1980, the road stops short of the gate or gate issue that's come up. So let's go to the PowerPoint and then I'll be done. Who's driving the bus? Hey, Susan? Okay, there's an aerial. You can see the total site. Next one, please. Okay, these are the lots of record. The second, this is the survey. It was done by Central Florida. There's a date on it. You can note this predates my client's occupation of, or possession of this property. And they designate and note the gate that is existing at that time. And then the next one, please. Here's the site plan. We took this and modified it, incorporated it into the survey, blew it up, the Central Florida survey. As you can see, the barn is located 50 feet off of the easement. The house is 500 feet from the property, which meets code. And the two lots, 24 and 25, will be combined to meet code for density and intensity for 6 horses. So I would say to you that all Mr. Collin wants is to build a barn and have some horses here. This issue, if there is an issue, okay, about this easement and access to the water, is not for your consideration. It's outside of the code criteria. And if you buy into that, I suggest to you that you're deviating from the code. If you stick to the code in the staff report, it'll be, we'll just have 6 horses. This other issue will be resolved. If there is an issue, it will be resolved in a different form, in a different place, in a different manner. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Commissioner Bass.
Morning, Mr. Stilwell. How are you today? The survey was completed by Central Florida Engineering. I was looking at it, and I don't see what the individual acreage is for Lot 24 and Lot 23. Do you actually have the actual individual acreage?
We use the acreage that was set forth by the property appraiser's office.
Okay. To that end, I believe the property card indicates there's approximately 130,587 square feet on the property. Taking a look at the survey and just doing some average widths and lengths, I come up with the property is only roughly 110,000 square feet, which is only 2.5 acres, which to me says we're short a half an acre for her to have 6 horses. So how do you intend on addressing that issue?
I believe that we're appropriate in relying upon the PA's office records.
Well, if there was a boundary survey completed, I would trust the boundaries. Not that I'm saying our property appraiser's office is wrong, but I would trust the survey, seeing as that was signed by a professional. So I just have a concern that there appears to only be 2.5 acres and not 3.
Well, here's my answer to that, okay? And that's staff condition number 4.
Yep.
We're submit a site plan, and if you want to modify that to say we'll submit a site plan and designated the respective acreages of lots 24 and 25, we'll be glad to do that. I think that will answer your question. And if it turns out that it's 2.5 acres, that means you get 4 horses instead of 6.
Mr. Chairman, if I could jump in real quick. I came up with the
Joe.
same issue when I was doing calculations on these lots. And if you take what the survey shows and you just go to the traverse lines, they do seem to come up short. But if you go to the approximate water body, you get a little more acreage. That's where that 3 acres comes from.
The boundary of the lots would be the ordinary high water line of Lake Salapopkin on the Floral City Pool. The elevation there is 44.40 feet. The only reason I know that is I've got another application going with that issue came up. So you would run to that elevation, and that would establish the boundary line. But again, I'll be glad, Mr. Bass, at the time of site plan to document that.
May I just continue a little bit, sir?
Sure thing.
Joe, thank you very much for what you did. I looked at the same thing. You know, take a look, you had 30-foot dimension, and I scaled off approximately 10 foot at the 2 southerly posts. And I came up with like an additional 5,000 square feet, so we're still well short of the 3 acres. I don't know what numbers that you had, but like I said, I have a serious condition with, or trouble with the 6 horses on the 2.5 plus or minus acres.
Well, the code defines it, whether it's 1 acre or, well, you gotta have 2, okay?
Right.
So then it goes from there. So if it turns out that it's less than 3 acres, then you just drop off a couple
Okay.
ponies.
Just the number of horses.
All right, thank you.
Other questions from the board? Questions from staff?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stillwell.
Thank you, Mr. Facemeyer and members.
May we hear from staff, please?
Good morning.
Morning, Joe.
Joe Hockadell, Principal Planner with Land Development. This application is to allow for animals and a barn on a vacant property located within 500 feet of a primary residence. The 3 acres in their entirety is approximately 4.5 acres, and lot 24 and 25 are about an acre and a half apiece. In the surrounding area, you can see there is all residential. This is a view of the lot 24 and 25 where they're proposing to have the horses. And this is a view of where the proposed barn is to go. And this is a view of Eeyore Point, which is a private roadway 50 foot wide that runs between the primary residence, which would be on the right, and where the animals will be located, which would be on the left. So the applicant is proposing 6 horses and a barn with stalls on lot 24 and 25. It is located across Eeyore Point from the primary residence, as you can see here. The barn size is about 4,800 square feet in size, and it is located 50 feet from Eeyore Point. If these 2 lots do come out to be a total of 3 acres in size, the 6 horses proposed meets the animal schedule, which allows for 2 horses per acre. However, one thing the Land Development Code says is that a parcel has to be at least 2 acres in size in order to have animals in this land use district. And so one of the requirements will be that they'll have to do a lot reconfiguration and combine those 2 lots to get that minimum 2 acre lot size. But the use as proposed is compatible with the surrounding area. There are some other residences in that area that have animals. And so all the findings of fact have been found to be positive findings, and we do have suggested conditions.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions from staff? All right, from the board.
Joe, south of Eeyore Point, is that a public right-of-way or is that a private right-of-way?
South Eeyore Point is a private right-of-way.
So is it part of the adjoining property, or is it just a piece sitting out by itself?
I believe it is.
An easement usually is on a bigger piece of property. This isn't an easement, this is a right-of-way, right?
Well, it's a private easement for ingress and egress, which is like a private right-of-way.
But who owns that private right-of-way?
Property owners?
Yeah.
The adjacent property owner?
Not.
And if they do own it, why isn't it included as part of their property as opposed to a separate little strip of land?
I think he's getting to, you could count it towards acreage for the horses. They're easements, and the applicants demonstrated ownership of the easements. So this particular item, we're looking at whether the barn can go across the easement, not necessarily who owns it and who has access to it.
But, all right, I don't see where the 50-foot offset from the easement is even relevant if it is just truly an easement. Who cares?
Yeah, we do impose setbacks to named easements like we do right-of-ways. It is a formality that we do as part of the Land Development Code setbacks, but point taken.
And the animal section of the code says that a barn, or other structure used for housing of animals has to be at least 50 feet from a property line. So.
But that isn't a property line, it's part of their property, right?
It's true. Here's what he's saying, but 50 foot is used in this particular case. Yes, did they have to meet the 50 foot? Not really, but they're doing it. Joe was just commenting they were doing it. It's not necessarily required.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Scragg.
Joe, the 2 horses per acre, is that usually without a barn? And then if you have a barn, you can have more than 2 horses per acre?
No, it is 2 horses per acre, period, whether you have a barn or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Chair, I have one question. One question to go.
Commissioner Stoll, or, yeah, Commissioner, Counselor.
You're somebody.
Commissioner's probably appropriate.
Affirmation process where you can file an affidavit joining two abutting properties now.
I'm sorry, I can't hear Mr. Stillwell because he's not at the mic.
Okay, he's coming.
Sorry, Clark.
No, that's quite all right. I asked Joseph, the county commissioners have adopted a procedure now where you can file an affidavit joining two lots together, making them into one. And I just want to know if that's available to the Cullums instead of a lot reconfiguration.
It's not, because you're trying to combine them for a use that's used when you want to do an accessory building with a principal building on the other property. It's very specific to buildings and not for a use like animals.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Joe. At this time, I will open this hearing to the public for public comment.
Thank you.
Good
My
morning.
name is Joe Eicher, and I'm here representing my mother, who couldn't attend for health reasons, and 4 other residents of the neighborhood made up of Kanga Way, Rue, and Eeyore. I have, in advance, given a copy of a letter that I prepared with the help of legal counsel. Unfortunately, not able to attend this meeting today because of prior commitments. This letter, signed by these individuals, states what I found was overwhelming support for the construction of the barn, provided that this easement be respected. The easement's been in place for almost 50 years, and I understand Attorney Stillwell's argument about the code, but from what I understand, if you look at the code, relative to the barn, we're not really, the residents aren't concerned about the placement. They're concerned about maintaining access, not only for their pleasure, as I said, which they've had for almost 50 years, but also for emergency vehicle access. So that water access has been used at least 3 times in the past to recharge fire trucks, and continued operation of the barn, if equipment is allowed to be stored in the easement or gates put across it, would restrict, of course, residents' access and emergency vehicle access. So we asked the board to, there's a set of extra conditions I put here that these residents are requesting that the board attach to this application so that they can continue to enjoy what they have as part of this small neighborhood. And pardon my lapse of etiquette.
No, that's fine.
I'm an engineer, not a politician.
Okay.
And these are the signed copies. I should leave these here too then?
We have them.
No, those aren't signed.
Okay, you can't submit anything new?
Okay.
They're not,
He's public input, he can do that.
Okay,
Good.
you can leave them with Cheryl.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board on this matter?
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Mark McIntosh. I am a resident of the said unrecorded subdivision. I've lived there approximately 11 years. Part of the idea of buying the place was the water access. I know that water access is more and more important and more valuable as the days go on and things change, especially in Florida and in Citrus County. And far as reselling or possibly, doing something with the house, that is a valuable asset that definitely was considered when we were looking for a place to buy. I have had up to 3 horses. I only have 1. I have 7+ acres around the corner. Have to the neighbor, understanding what she wants to do. As a resident, I agree with what Joe had said, but, and I disagree with Mr. Stillwell saying that the easement is a different issue. And the reason being is that easement is there for all the residents. It's in all the deeds of everybody that lives down there, including theirs. I understand there might have been some misinformation or some information not given when the property was sold. I apologize, you know, I understand, but you have to do your due diligence when you buy a piece of property and understand what you're buying and what you have access to do and not do. The previous owner had 3 lots split by the easement. They knew that. They were inquiring to put up a work shed and were told that they could not put it up because of the same issue. And they had talked about coming to the board and asking, but they decided not to, and then they eventually sold the property. So whether they didn't disclose the information or the realtor that handled the deal didn't disclose the information, that's not an issue for me as a neighbor to worry about. But as far as the barn, I have no objections. As far as the horses, I have no objections as long as the number of horses match the criteria to keep everything in code. My issue is the easement and being used as personal storage area for equipment, which blocks that or partially blocks that easement. And my issue is with the gate, even though we have been told the gate, you can go through it any time. If you look at the gate, now there's a gate, there's signs on it, no dogs, or no trespassing, beware a dog. So there's 2 big gates, there's surveillance cameras. That doesn't make an open easement for the other residents. I'm sorry. And I don't want to see that easement used as part of property that everybody in that subdivision has ownership of, including them. So that's my main reason for being here. Again, I do not object to the barn, and I do not object to them combining the property to cover for the horses, but the easement, as of right now, I see could be an ongoing issue unless agreements and understandings are in place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public who would like to address this issue? Please come forward.
I live on Kanga Way.
Excuse me, sir, would you repeat your name into the microphone?
I'm
just for
sorry,
the
my
tape
name is
record?
Scott Gardner. Good morning.
Good morning.
I live at 7420 South Kanga Way, which is just south of this property we're in question here. I don't have a problem with the lady building anything on there, having 100 horses if it was legal. But every time we come to these meetings, something's got to change on this easement. And like a permanent something from y'all about this easement so people don't come to this hearing. And I can't pick that up because I'm sorry. Why it's come to this, I had no idea, except we have fought this several times before. Thank you, Joe. I don't even know what that is. If somebody's missing this,
You can just leave it on the podium.
I'll knock it off again. I own the property behind with Alex, which is south there. If anybody's got the pictures, you can put it up to see right where I live. But I own, yeah, right there. Can you go south of there a little bit?
No, sir.
Okay. Those 2 lots, and then straight across the easement to your east, which would be going that way on the map, and then south, I'd be the second resident on your left, which is all the swamp back there behind all that. I got 38 acres. I got 10 acres on the front that's cleared for horses, and I usually let my neighbors use it. And I don't see how you can put 6 horses on 2 or 3 acres and then build a barn, make it even smaller. But why does she want to put her barn right there? I mean, if you want it to the house, my question is, a horse barn facing the house? would be facing the house? The doors, the entrance to the horse farm.
Excuse me, sir.
The entrance to the horse
Address the
farm.
board. Please address the board.
All right, can you tell me which side the barn doors are on?
This is not a question and answer period. This is a time for you to say.
Okay, then I have the
Like
question for her because I could see her point moving it closer to her house so she could see the front of her barn. But not out on that easement. She doesn't have that legal right to park anything out there. She doesn't have the legal right to drive a six-wheeler or four-wheeler anywhere she wants to on that road. It's subject to the law enforcement. We've already had them out there and arrested people for violations. Big fire we had a couple years ago started right there on that lot because the guy had no respect for the right-of-way or people lived around there. He was arrested. I had some questions, Mr. Stillwell, but since this is addressed to y'all, I just tell you I totally object to this, and y'all are ones that are, I guess, elected to this position. Is that correct? Are we elected, appointed, or what?
This is not a question and answer period, but we are appointed.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. Put yourself living out there. That easement dead ends right to the water. And I've had my grandkids in it, and I've had my kids in it. And if I do decide to go into it, does that mean I'm done?
Yes, sir. Please, you can
That's 3
conclude
minutes
your
out of
remarks.
2 hours here? Okay. I just say this, that I've cut locks off, took gates down before, and until this is changed on my right-of-way, as me being the owner out there to the center of it for 300, 400 feet, I've been maintaining this road for 30 years, all the way down to the end down there, several times.
Thank you.
We'll
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Can I have your yellow
Please
form?
come forward.
Thank you.
Good morning, Board. My name is Carla Boone, and I live at 5260 Smoky Mountain Point, and I'm addressing building permits. And I've brought pictures of property that was, our roads that have been destroyed when people come through there. Like in 2019, they built a house, and you all gave them permit to build the house, but they didn't do anything to the road. They built a great big concrete block home with a swimming pool, and load after load of concrete blocks come through there and tore it apart, tore the road up and access to it. And I know of 2 cars that were totaled because of it. It was water that time. But I have the accounting of where we've raised money to get it graded, and we did it in 2019. We had to. There's not that many people wanting to put in money, and a lot of them are drug dealers, and they don't want the cops back there. And a lot of us want us to move out. And they keep on building permits, giving out building permits, but yet we have to have people come out there to pump our septic tanks. We need ambulance service. And I mean, I wish you would drive out there sometime and look at what you're giving building permits for people to build. I know one gentleman bought a property up above me on Smoky Mountain Point. He plans to build a house. I mean, it's just gonna ruin the road some more, and he will not put in a dime. That person will not put in a dime. And the people that built the great big brick house with the swimming pool, they think you should take care of them. She more or less told me that. So anyway, it's creating a dangerous situation. You're gonna have people needing medical. We're gonna need law enforcement back there. The more people back there, the bigger problem it's gonna cause. I mean, I know you get an impact fee when somebody builds a house. I mean, make the builders, if they want to keep doing that, make them construct a road to where you can get trucks in there. My neighbors across the street in 2006 built a house, great big house with a pool. And they spent $7,000 on the road material to get it to where you could get trucks in there. And anyway, I've written a little synopsis, and that's our money. If you drive out there right now, it looks like somebody did grade it recently because we had the money to buy the material to fill in the holes. We had to wait, they said, until the first of the year for the material to be available, But this other, neighbor of ours said he had access, that he could get our material faster than that. I mean, people have lost their cars. You've got, grills off these little cars laying on the side of the road. I pulled a lady out in a Dodge truck that wasn't a 4x4 with my little Explorer, which was a 4x4. I mean, water was coming in her cab. And I'll be glad to give these to you, I guess it's you I give these to?
Thank you, Mrs. Boone.
Hang on, Mr. Commissioner.
Yes.
Ms. Boone.
Yes.
Smoky Mountain Point. Is that road in Crystal River?
Yes,
Are you talking about off Gum Street?
yes.
This particular property that we're talking about is in Floral City?
Oh, I
Right?
thought,
This is Floral City. Are you
Oh,
talking
oh,
about the right application?
Oh,
I'm sorry, he
I don't
said
even know.
address the board, and I thought we were, it's my fault.
I just
think-
want to make sure
Oh,
you understand,
okay.
right? Do we even have anything that's on Smoky
No.
Mountain Point today?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
it's okay. I just want to make sure you understand and we all understand here.
Well, he said to address the board, and I was like, yeah, I need to, but I didn't
I
realize
think
it was
you
on the
probably
floor.
wanted to come up for the public comment, which was the very beginning of the meeting, to just talk on any open issue that you wanted to.
I didn't
And I
realize
walked
it
in too
was-
late.
Yeah, right.
for
As soon
something
as she
else.
said Smoky Mountain Point, I know where that road is. It's
Okay.
off Gum Street in Turkey Oak area. So
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure, listen, we heard you, and I'm not trying to be derogatory. I just want to make sure you understood that that's not what this application is.
Okay, for the record, and I apologize because I thought she was addressing CU 21-12. So I tell you what I will do. I will give you the courtesy at the end of the meeting
To do it.
to address the board officially, but I think you've already done it. So
Okay, you want me to just hand these to her? I mean, I've already done
that's
it.
fine. Yeah, that's fine.
I apologize.
That's
My-
okay.
You're perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I got behind a school bus, they're doing, construction on Turkey Oak. It was a mess this morning. I did it all. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board on CU 21-12? Seeing no one, I'll close the public portion of this hearing, and Mr. Stillwell, I will allow you the opportunity to do across.
Thank you. Mr. Stone, you ask a very esoteric legal question. Who owns the easement? Okay. So when you create that easement, the original grantor, the original subdivider, retains the fee. And he puts the easement on top of it, and the easement is the dominant property right. Now, if it was a plat, and it was dedicated to the public, and then that road was vacated, the abutting lots would take the fee title from the original subdivider. In the case of an unrecorded subdivision like this, it's either one or two people, okay? It's the original guy that subdivided the property back in 1974, and his heirs, successors or whatever, or it's the abutting property owners, and a lot depends on the deeds and how it's described in it. So if the deed goes all the way around the piece and then says subject to an easement, he takes the total, but the easement is the dominant on that area described. So there'll be a quiz on that later. Okay, and I want to talk, first off, I think everyone has said whatever the number of horses, that's fine. You can have the barn, that's fine. Don't put it in the easement right away, and I appreciate that. The code says, and you're bound by the code, your decision criteria says follow the code. You can impose conditions that relate to those objective criteria in the code. That's your authority to impose conditions. And the objective criteria in the code is, are the lots big enough? Is it 50 feet off the property line? Is it 500 feet from the house? Nowhere in this code does it address private property rights. And I know some of you have been here longer than others, but all of you, I believe now, you don't deal with restrictive covenants. Those are private property rights, and you don't deal with those. This easement is a private property right. And there are issues here, okay? Not the least of which is the easement was recorded in 1974. Florida's Market Record Title Act required something to be filed within 30 years of the root of title to preserve that easement. I can tell you that's never been done. The second thing is the two minor subdivisions, if you look at the exhibits, E1 and I1 and 2, the second one in the subdivision where Mr. Gardner lives, the easement described in that minor sub stops before you get to the point where the gate is. Are you going to resolve that conflict here today between the two documents? Is that your role? And then the third thing is the easement doesn't prohibit parking inside of the easement. And as you know, ingress and egress on a public roadway is an inherent accessory right to park. Are you going to resolve that issue here today? And then the third one is this gate, this unlocked gate, is that in the common law would raise the question, is that an unreasonable impairment of the rights of those people that have ingress and egress? And what the court would look at is such items as security in a rural neighborhood for a single-family private house versus the inconvenience potentially of having to get out and open a gate and then close it. But a court would do that. So what I'm saying to you is stick with your staff report. That's your safe harbor here. The gate's unlocked, and these issues, these neighborhood issues, will be addressed in another forum. And again, Mr. Bass, if you want that condition about confirming the square footage, I'll be glad to do that in the site plan. Thank you, sir.
Are there questions from the board?
I got one, I don't even know if it pertains.
Commissioner
Who
Royce?
pays taxes on that line?
It doesn't have an alt key number. To pay taxes, you have to have an alt key number. It doesn't have one.
So no one pays taxes on these?
No. It's like the lake. It doesn't have an alt key number or that type of thing. Okay.
Thank you.
I have one question. So it's your position, the only piece of this right away that's in question or in debate is basically from the gate back towards the whatever body of water that is.
Right.
Okay.
And our position is that's not relevant material, and there's no legal nexus to impose criteria relative to that easement on a horse application to the onto the abutting lots.
Thank you.
Thank
Questions,
you.
questions from staff?
Is that the attorney calling?
Is that the attorney calling?
This phone just rang.
I have no idea.
No, she's on something else.
She's on Teams, it's got its own.
Any questions from staff?
I'm not calling.
No, she's not calling.
Thank you.
No, I point out that condition 1 talks about animals. It doesn't really specify horses or the number. So it does say in accordance with the animal schedule, so that's when we'd be looking at the acreage, and you'd have to document how many to allow how many horses. So I think condition 1 is covering.
It's already in
Right.
there.
All right, yeah, I don't want to duplicate it.
Although it doesn't specify horses, so if you want that changed from animals to horses, we can do that.
I believe the correct term is equine.
Equine?
Equine.
Thank you, Mr. Stillwell. At this point, I'll return the discussion back to the board for further discussion and possible action.
I just want to hear, Mr. Chair,
Yes,
from
sir. Mr. Bramlett.
our council. I know that she tells us time and time again that we're not always being fed the facts, we're being fed argument. So I just need more information about this whole easement deal. I know that that's the elephant in the room. I just want to clear it up real quick.
Ms. Lynn?
Yes, the issue of the easement and proper use of the easement, who owns the easement, anything related to the easement is not relevant to your decision today. The property owners need to figure that out among themselves.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Bramlett?
No, that's it.
Other commissioners, questions and comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Bass?
excuse me. On August 3rd, 2021, Ms. Couture received a note from Attorney Stillwell that says, the livestock to which horses are for the applicant's personal use, no commercial activities such as boarding lessons, et cetera, are intended. Should that be part of our conditions, that it's strictly for pleasure and no business can be run?
Yeah, if the applicant has no concerns, if he's willing to offer that, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments? Commissioner Scragg?
I'm in favor with the conditions that were listed.
Thank you. Other input from the board?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and put it out there. We heard, and the residents who have concerns heard what the county attorney told us. It doesn't sound right. Obviously, I hope that the applicant would try and be a good neighbor, but if it's not on us to decide, the findings of fact are all positive, I'd be in favor of the conditional use.
And I'm in favor as well. With the one added condition that Commissioner Bass put forward.
Right, and I think condition 1, we can specify horses and then say no commercial boarding. That seems to address.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
Excuse me.
Yes, Counselor?
I don't know if boarding is too restrictive, maybe just non-residential uses.
Okay.
Duly noted.
No non-residential uses.
Is that okay with the applicant?
I would say no commercial uses. Non-residential uses is a term that, just no commercial uses.
He's saying no commercial uses instead of
Correct.
non-residential uses, is what he'd prefer.
Mr. Stillwell is saying no commercial uses.
I'm thinking down the road, when someone reads that, they understand no commercial uses. They don't understand no non-residential uses, unless they're like you guys.
What does that mean?
You okay with that, Joanna? Okay, thank
that-
you. I'll entertain a motion.
I'm pretty confident that you'll word it properly, but we all know what we mean here.
Okay.
I believe in Ms. Couture.
I think he just dissed us though, but yes.
The weight of the world is on your
Thank you.
shoulders right now.
Mr. Chair, purpose of a motion.
Commissioner Barnes?
The Planning and Development Commission finds application number CU 21-12 consistent with the Citrus County Comprehensive Plan and the Citrus County Land Development Code, and the board approves with conditions as stated in the application. Do I need to read them?
No.
Based on the evidence and
Commissioner Barnes, you may want to say as amended.
as amended,
I'll second.
the application based upon the evidence and testimony presented in the staff report and conclusions regarding the petition, it's been determined that approving the proposed conditional use will not adversely affect the public interest, and that there will be compliance with special rules governing individual conditional uses and types involved. That the proposed development with conditions and safeguards attached would be generally compatible with adjacent properties and other properties in the district, and that the PDC is empowered under the section of the LDC described in this application to grant this conditional use.
I have a motion by Commissioner Barnes and a second by Commissioner Scragg. Is there further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Time has arrived for a hearing on DA 21-01.
Yes, DA-21-01. This application proposes to modify an existing development for a racetrack development. The site lies on the southwest corner of State Road 44 and County Road 491 in Lecanto. This is looking west on State Road 44 with the site on the right in this photo. And this is looking west on State Road 44. The development agreement with the BOCC was signed in 2017, and the applicant would like to add additional gas pumps and a canopy on the west side of the site. This is the site plan submitted by the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant please come forward?
Hello, I'm Brian Potts, Tanith Design, representing Racetrack, 2494 Rose Spring Drive, Orlando. So yeah, we're looking to upgrade the site. We want to remodel the convenience store, and it was only built 4 years ago, but they've got some new offerings they'd like to put in it. And they'd also like to add semi-fueling, because they feel that it's a need here in this area. We've already spoken with DOT, and we basically have an intent to issue permit from them. They had us add a decel lane, a right turn lane into the site for safety. So, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I had a question. I was just curious. Do you put emergency generators in those stations to pump fuel if the power goes out?
That is a great question, and we have a representative here from Racetrack that could.
Please come to the podium, please. And please state your name for the record.
My name is John Paul Hoover, representing Racetrack. I'm honestly not specifically informed on the presence of an emergency generator, but I can certainly look into it and get back to the board if you'd like to hear about it.
I would like to hear about it.
All right, so, and your name was Mr. Dixon?
Chuck Dixon.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you. Anyone else on the board?
I have questions.
Mr.
I just
Bramlett.
sort of, like, I know that particular area very well, and I mean, obviously, I don't really have an issue with what they're asking to do, but so the parkway's coming in around the corner. I'm guessing you're thinking truck traffic's gonna increase, 44. That spot, though, is just really constrained by where you go in and where you go out. So if a truck comes in there, they turn right, they fill up right there, they're gonna go around the back side of that building. If they wanna continue to go east on 44, they have to come out and then do a U-turn on 491 right there. It just seems a little congested, and I just want to know if you guys, like, what do you guys have to say about something like that? And has it
Well,
been
we ran
thought
an
through?
auto turn for your engineering department to show that a WB 67 can actually come out and do a loop to the right and come out the same entrance here that they come in.
That was my other question then. So that's the intended.
That is the main intended, but we also ran an auto turn for them, and they wanted the truck to go all the way to the north to where the truck didn't have to do a U-turn and could just come out and make a left. So we ran an auto turn to show that the truck could make that movement if they were so inclined.
Can you go back to the aerial, please?
So there's a frontage road heading adjacent to Lecanto Parkway that comes down to, I believe, Laurel. So we have a auto turn that shows the truck being able to come down to Laurel, pull out, and then make a left, so they don't have to do. I mean, a truck wouldn't be able to do a U-turn on that right away.
Right.
So they really have the ability to go either way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Bass.
Just curious, for the freestanding sign, it's existing 250 square feet, and you're looking to increase it by 10 square feet. Just curious, why the additional 10 square feet?
It's just the design of the new sign that they want to put up.
Okay. Second thing is, you are increasing the impervious area and decreasing, increasing the impervious and decreasing the pervious area. I assume there's no negative impact to the DRA that's on site because of that small change.
Correct. So when this site was originally permitted, it said in the developer's agreement that we could build up to 70% impervious. That language is actually in the DA that was previously approved, and we are still below that 70% impervious.
All right. Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Questions from staff?
No, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Time to hear from staff.
All right, development agreement, although it looks like a PUD, it's not a PUD. It does look very similar, but these are contracts between the county commissioners, the county, and the applicant. In this particular case, there was a lot of moving parts when Racetrack was built. 491 was being constructed, the frontage lane was being constructed, drainage was being done, utility lines. So because of all those moving parts, they did enter into this development agreement for this racetrack. And you'll see, I put the original developer's agreement in there, and then the revised development agreement with staff comments. Originally, the applicant had proposed a lot of strike-throughs. Then after discussion, they really weren't trying to get rid of existing stuff. They thought that didn't apply to this particular item. So you have the revised development agreement in your packet. So we talked about this a little bit. Mr. Miller made a very good point on that, on how the trucks get there. And, ooh, I just have a point now. Used to be a big thing, and now all I see is a point. Well, I got a point. All right, the trucks would come down. Is what he's saying is come down and then come out of Laura, which is down farther south. That's how that frontage road was designed, to be able to do cross access on 491. And with this development agreement, all those provisions in the development agreement, such as who maintains that, who uses it, etc., would stay in place. So this is where the proposed canopy expansion would be, and the pump expansion. They would continue in this area. And this is the existing racetrack site plan. This is in the development agreement. And you can see there to the south the cross access that was referenced earlier. And this is the new canopy area with the tanks and being able to pass through there. This is the exact location where we think this will be. And I tried to do this side by side at the best scale I could, try to identify. I'm not a CAD person, so I just did my best here. But you can see there's a few items to talk about very quickly for this DA. They are, as Mr. Bass pointed out, increasing slightly the freestanding sign area and the wall sign area for this new canopy. Findings of fact are positive. I do need to announce that this application will be heard in December. And I think it's December 14th is the BOCC meeting. December 14th, the next BOCC meeting is when we'll hear this with the board. And that's it.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Commissioner Stone.
That road down to Laurel on the south end, that passes very close to a neighboring building right there.
Yeah, the daycare building was part of the development agreement. They were actually a party to it and involved in this from day one.
Okay, and that road seems, I would have to say, inadequate for very heavy truck traffic to move in close proximity to there, and the road itself does not seem adequate to handle that. It seems like a little residential road to me.
It is not. The engineers did consider truck traffic in this, and they also reviewed this application and had no concerns. That was part of the development agreement, and he's talked about the turning movement radius. I'm not an engineer, but I did rely on them, and that this was intended to at all times be a commercial corridor. Although we do have residential things that are going there, but it is a daycare. So for the daycare to serve, it was designed for buses, and for Racetrack, it was designed for heavier vehicles.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board?
I think since it's becoming more of a truck stop, that they should provide emergency generators, because if we have people coming up from other counties in a storm evacuation situation and the power's out for 3 days, if they can't get fuel out of the tanks, and it's a development agreement, it's not a PUD, so I think that ought to at least be on the table for providing fuel.
And you've got the Racetrack representative here listening to that, so that's up to them if they want to include that in there. It's not in our land development code. It's not something we normally consider. Good point taken, though. We can discuss that with them.
I don't think with all due respect, Joanne, I think this is a development agreement. Just because it's not in the land development code is not relevant. This is a special situation.
Okay, we'll agree to disagree. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you, Joanna. This time I will open this hearing to the public for your comments. Seeing no one, I will we'll close the open portion of this hearing. We'll close it and return it to the board for discussion and possible action.
I'm in favor.
I am as well.
I'm in favor.
Likewise.
I vote for.
It seems as though we have a consensus. I will entertain a motion for approval of
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Bramlett.
we have conditions.
You do not. You have the development agreement itself,
Okay.
which is the document.
The planning,
Can I just say
Yes,
one
sir.
thing before we go on with a motion? Commissioner Dixon raised a question about an emergency generator. can we send that as a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, or how would we deal with that?
Absolutely, we can put that in there if you'd like to have that. If that's the board's consensus, certainly, we can recommend that to be added to the development agreement.
Sounds like a very good idea.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a very common provision in Dade and Monroe and Broward County is to have required standby emergency generators for fueling facilities as well as, you know, hospitals and actually grocery stores and their cold food. So you don't see it up here, but it is there.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bramlett.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah,
I'm
take
just
your time.
writing my.
Take your time.
The Planning and Development Commission finds application number DA-21-01 consistent with the Citrus County Comprehensive Plan and the Citrus County Land Development Code, and that this board recommends approval with the condition, suggestion, I don't know how we want to, I don't know if we want to say if it's like it's mandatory or.
Suggestion.
The suggestion of the generator installation considered. Approval application to the Board of County Commissioners based upon the evidence and testimony presented and the staff report and conclusions regarding this petition.
I have a motion by Commissioner Bramlett. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner
I'm
Bass.
sorry,
Counselor?
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
I'm sorry, what is the discussion about the generator?
Commissioner,
What are we gonna add about the generator?
we're as we forward this application to the Board of County Commissioners, Commissioner Dixon raised a question about potentially including an emergency generator on this site. So we're forwarding it as a suggestion to the county commissioners.
What does that have to do with the land use?
Well, it's a development agreement. It's not a land use amendment.
Oh. That's just this is just a recommendation, Joanna?
Yes.
Yeah, this is a recommendation. They're asking to put that, to tell the board that they think that should also be included in development agreement language.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I lost track where we were.
We
We got a motion and a second.
Yeah,
Motion-
who seconded it?
Commissioner Bass. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Anybody need a break? I'm going to declare a 10-minute break, recess, and we will reconvene at 10:20. That we're ready to go, so I will reconvene this hearing, and time has arrived for hearing on PUD 21-13.
Yes, this application proposes to amend an existing RV park master plan. The site is located on State Road 44 in the Inverness area and is approximately 234 acres in size. The site contains heavy trees with an interior pasture area along with some wetlands and is adjacent to water on several sides. This is a view of the mobile home park that lies across State Road 44, and so it's across from the site. This is part of the interior pasture area, which also contains some trees around the outer edges towards the water. This is the existing master plan approved in 2011 for 439 RV sites and a 12-hole golf course. And this is the master plan that's proposed by the applicant with 1,000 RV spaces and the golf course removed. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant please come forward?
Good morning, board members.
Morning.
My name is John Eden, and I'm here on behalf of New Horizon Funding, Inc. And as you can see in the staff report, we're seeking
various changes in our existing PUD, primarily brought about by changes in the market that have occurred over the last 10 years since this was initially approved. The intensity of this project, I believe, was significantly more at that time. We were going to subdivide this property into 439 different ownerships, actually selling lots, and we were going to have a 12-hole executive par 3 golf course, and the market is just not there for the golf course, so we want to eliminate the golf course. Obviously, that will improve the environmental quality of our park by doing that. Even though we're not going to eliminate green space, we will far exceed what the county code allows, which I believe is 30. You have to maintain 30%, but we're going to be above that number for our green space. So actually what we're trying to do is improve the park quality. This is just going to be a rental RV park, so we're going to maintain single ownership. While still maintaining our environmental theme to protect all the wetland buffers and to keep this a secluded property. We have every intent to do that. We're projected to spend about $30 million on improvements and amenities. And so we, at the prior number of sites that or lots, subdivided lots that we were allowed before, the numbers just don't work, to be honest with you. I mean, we have to have higher density in order to get the kind of return to appeal to my investors and make the park economically viable. But we're still far below what the county code allows. We're not seeking any modifications that would exceed what's allowed by the code. We don't have any concurrency issues. We've already started our entrance, actually. The road improvements on 44 have already been completed. And that's about it. We're going to exceed the minimum sites, RV sites, the square footage of our RV sites on all of them that are proposed to be built. We don't have engineered plans for phases 2 and 3, so I can't tell you exactly the number of sites that will be in there, because we can just kind of estimate that. But we do have our engineered plans, which have been revised and they're being tweaked now, and they will be submitted to the county next month. And there's 245 sites in phase 1. And if you look at the phase 1 area involved, I'm not sure that we're even going to get to 1,000, but honestly, we don't want to have to come back and go through this modification process again if we underestimate what we can fit in phases 2 and 3. So that's why we're here today.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the board? Questions from staff?
Just real quickly, the staff report has 18 proposed conditions. Did you have any concerns with any of those?
No, ma'am. I have reviewed all of them, and I think that we're in all agreement with that.
Okay.
I mean, you have one thing that, and I touched on this, was the vegetative buffer. I don't know if we can switch back to the aerial where you can actually see the lake shore. On the west and the south side, there's a natural hardwood hammock around the property, and we do not intend to disturb that at all, because we want it to remain private for both our guests that are using the park, but also private and secluded and leave it as natural looking as we can for everybody that enjoys this beautiful county that we live in. And I live right on the south side of that lake. And I look across at that beautiful shoreline. I have my whole life, and honestly, I don't ever want to see it disturbed.
Thank you, sir.
I intend on maintaining it exactly as it is, other than maybe seeing a dock protruding out from the cypress trees. That's going to be the only thing.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question on this.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have one more question.
Is this gated community?
Yes, sir. It's going to be gated and
no
guarded
public
and have a
access?
guard shack.
And you're proposing a general store and a restaurant?
There won't be a restaurant open to
Catering
public.
kitchen.
It would be a catering kitchen for special events, that's all.
But not for, well, I'm only asking on behalf of the local businesses in that
Right.
area. You know, I think it would kind of deprive them, you know, putting in 200, all these RV lots and them not having accessibility to your guests to shop or render at their stores. Just a
Exactly.
question.
I mean, and what we're proposing is going to be an economic boon for
Right.
not only Inverness,
Well, I
but
get that. I
Citrus
understand
County.
that. Just that
For
one
sure.
little comment.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
May we hear from staff?
All right, this is approximately 234 acres. It is already zoned RVP, and we're amending the RVP master plan with this application. So we did talk briefly, it is already RVP. That CL down at the bottom there that touches it is actually water. It looks like it has a zoning designation, but most of that is water. And this is a close-up of the aerial as well. There are some cleared areas, and he's talked about leaving the natural hammock in the border, which is wonderful. This talks about the wetland areas. These are waterfront or wetlands coming in. There are no wetland impacts proposed with this application, and they are proposed to meet wetland setbacks. And this is some of the open area that you just saw on the aerial. And this is what some of the wetland areas look like. There's not much to see, but they are undisturbed. This was the master plan that was previously approved. This was for 439, yes, RV sites. Never developed. It did also include, eventually came in and modified a golf course idea. And this is the new application. I pointed out the amenities areas on here so you can see them. One of the conditions is that they do put in some amenities for that phase 1 group that's going to be coming in to stay at the RV resort. And this is a close-up of one of the amenity areas that the applicant has provided. You can see a couple pools, the clubhouse, the bathhouse. He talked about the catering kitchen. And some of the amenities out on the point, a fishing dock, canoe launch, canoe livery. Their sign says a water taxi, assuming that's probably to some of the businesses on the City of Inverness side. And this is a close-up of phase 2. You'll see one of the conditions in here does allow them to modify this slightly as long as it still meets land development code standards and doesn't significantly change this area. We know when they get in for development, sometimes that lovely straight road isn't going to be straight anymore because of a tree or whatever is in the way. And this is a close-up of their RV site types. They've got quite a few there. They also make a provision in there that they may change things up slightly, still meeting code requirements. They're asking for a shed up to 60 square feet allowed in each RV park area. That's a provision of our land development code that could be allowed in RV parks, was previously approved, and that would carry over. And this is the master plan. So going over the conditions, there are 18 recommended conditions. Previously, there were a lot of other conditions that, frankly, were not necessarily related to this. No motorized vessels. I'm not really sure where that came from. Having a possibility of smoke warning. This isn't really a high burn area. So you see that let me point out a couple conditions. One, Mr. Eden talked about with the buffers. They do have to meet the buffer requirements. And they do have to meet all open space in each phase and subphase. That's proposed condition number 4. Number 5 was to keep the natural undisturbed buffer, which you just heard him say he would do. And number 6 talks about continuing at least a type C buffer, but he said he would do that. Pointing out also condition number 8 talks about recreation amenities. There is a note on the master site plan that they can have any recreation amenities provided they are allowable by the LDC. Staff has added a little bit of wording saying as long as that's something commonly accepted for a recreation amenity. I don't think Mr. Eden's going to go to town on this, but a future owner may decide some amenity like a racetrack or something that really isn't normal for an RV park, so that's why that condition is in there. We are saying the first phase of RV sites should include at least a clubhouse and or fishing pier picnic area for that first group. You'll see some comments on condition number 14. It talks about the fire plan reviews, minimum widths, etc. but there is also a clause in there, or is otherwise accepted with fire services. We have learned in the past that if we tighten these conditions too much with fire, then they talk to the fire marshal and work something out to that's not quite as worded. We don't want to have to come back before you on that. Number 16 talks about a biological survey. That's because of the size of the site. And 17 requires that lighting must be internal and not shine out to the water. So those are the 18 recommended conditions. That's all I have.
Thank you, Joanna. Questions from the board?
I have one just for clarification.
Commissioner Bramlett?
In the staff report, it mentions maximum density of RVs, 7 per acre.
Right.
And then on their site plan, it says, per the Citrus County Land Development Code, RV parks shall have a maximum density of 10 spaces per gross acre.
Yeah. Mr. Eden and I talked about that. We're not really sure where the 10 came from. He definitely had that in his head, and I think there must be something in the comp plan that talks about 10, I think there's 10 tent sites. It is 7 spaces per acre. That could allow him up to 1,498 spaces. He's doing 1,000, so he is still within that, but the condition is up to 1,000 is in the conditions now.
And then the only other question is I understand like the recreation space and up to 30% or a minimum of 30%. I don't see like any storage or anything like that on this master plan. Am I missing something? Is that not included in the land development code?
He has not provided, he has not asked, are you stormwater? Are you talking about stormwater or
No,
storage
just
of
like
RVs?
a storage area. I mean, I know that a lot of these other RV lots, Nature Coast Landings, and people tend to have trailers and just stuff.
Right.
Sometimes.
Mr. Eden can address that. There's not a specific area. The previous site plan had that, and this does not, so I don't think that's his intention, but he can address that.
Okay, it's not required.
No, not required.
Understood.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Joanna. At this time, excuse me. Excuse me. At this time, I will open the hearing to the public for your comments. Open to the public. Public comments. Seeing no one, I will close the public portion of this hearing. Return the discussion back to the board for discussion and possible action.
Mr. Chair, for the purpose of the motion.
Commissioner Bramlett.
The Planning and Development Commission finds application number PUD-21-13 consistent with the Citrus County Comprehensive Plan and the Citrus County Land Development Code, and that this board recommends approval with conditions of the application to the Board of County Commissioners based upon the evidence and testimony presented and the staff report and conclusions regarding this petition.
I have a motion by Commissioner Bramlett. Do I hear a second?
I second that.
Commissioner Barnes, we have a second by Commissioner Barnes. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Mr. Eden, yes, you may.
We had thought about that initially, but in looking at the design, it's not the prettiest thing to look at, and we really want this to be a luxury destination resort. So we decided to delete the storage area out of the project. And if the demand is there, what we would like to do would be to acquire another piece of property in the future off-site for that purpose.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, time has arrived for hearing on CPA AA 21-13.
Yes, this application proposes to change the land use of approximately 191 acres near the Crystal River High School on North Turkey Oak Drive. The site is currently part of the larger Betts Farm Development of Regional Impact, or DRI. This portion under application is owned by the school board, and the portion north of North Turkey Oak Drive is owned by the Board of County Commissioners. The application removes the site from the DRI and changes the land use and zoning from PDR/RMU to PSI, or public/semi-public/institutional. This is looking east on North Turkey Oak Drive. The application site is on the right in this photo. And this is looking west on North Turkey Oak, and this is looking towards the Crystal River High School area. There are several DRAs that abut the site on North Turkey Oak Drive. This is a view of one of them. And the existing DRI master plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant please come forward?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chuck Dixon, representing the Citrus County School Board. This property is a little bit unique in that it was conveyed to the school board and the Board of County Commissioners in exchange for impact fee credits back in the late 80s. And the portion that's owned by the school board is part of Crystal River High School campus. I mean, we've expanded the campus to include the agriculture center and the sports fields and the tennis courts and floodplain mitigation when we remodeled Crystal River High School. So the majority of the property that's owned by the school board, it doesn't have any residential entitlements. All of the residential is on the county property. And it's a bit unusual in that the applicant, or the owner of the DRI, is jointly owned between two government entities. So since this happened, we have to file an annual report, and that's usually done by the county, and the school board reviews it and provides any input on changes. But we don't have any intention to develop the school board owned property with anything other than a school or an ancillary use to the school or a school district facility. So that being said, the other issue is that the Betts Farm DRI is all in the unincorporated county, whereas the Crystal River High School is in the city of Crystal River. So half of the school is basically, or 2/3 of the school is in the city, 1/3 is in the county. And in order to clear all that up at some point, there may be an annexation. But in the meantime, we just want to make this site consistent with all the other public schools in the unincorporated county and have the PSI land use designation. So there wouldn't be any change of use at this time. If it, you know, there have been uses that have been considered in the past, all school related. So nothing really changes. It just keeps us from having to update the annual report if the county sells the portion that it owns north of Turkey Oak for private residential development. We're no longer in the loop with respect to the overall development. And that's basically in a nutshell what we're trying to do.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Commissioner Bass.
Mr. Dixon, looking at the map, you have a ball field which is located to the north of the area where the high school is. Why isn't that in this piece of property that the school board would take care of?
It is in the school board property.
There's a ball field just above that. Oh, so you're just looking at that whole parcel you're taking care of then, that whole yellow? Okay, I misunderstood. I apologize.
Yeah, when we expanded Crystal River High School, I'll give you a little bit of background. We added the entrance off from Turkey Oak for students. Before we did this, there was a major traffic jam in the city of Crystal River. We have 3 schools. They're all in close proximity. They all came in off the 8th Avenue or Crystal Street entrance. So when we expanded Crystal River High School, we added the entrance onto Turkey Oak for students, and then we have a bus. I don't have a pointer here. I don't know if this. Oh, that's. There you go. Does this have a pointer on it?
It's a very small one. It's very small. It used to be.
Well, anyway, you can see the school.
See the school.
See the school?
Yeah.
You see the entrance off from Turkey Oak to Crystal River High Drive?
Yeah.
Before we inquired solve that problem. Most of this property is used for Crystal River High School, and the rest of it is used for floodplain mitigation. So there's no residential entitlements that go with it. So the RMU category is really not appropriate, because that's residential mixed use.
Other questions from the board? Commissioner Barnes? Bass. Commissioner Bass?
I'm fine, thank you.
I was getting ahead of myself. Commissioner Bass, did you have any additional
No,
questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Time to hear from staff.
All right, this is a large-scale application to change approximately 155 acres from RMU and PDR, which is are your master plan designations, to PSI, public, semi-public, institutional. And we talked about this just a little bit. It does abut some of the city, as well as a lot of MDR type lots. And this is the land use you can see. Part of the school, as Mr. Dixon talked about, is within the city limits. Part of it isn't. Not much to see on some of the vacant areas. This is about it. It's certainly not developed, other than the areas that the school has already developed. And I highlighted in yellow here the school. You can see on the little table to the right, it's in your pack up as well. That's designated for public use, public school. So by changing this to PSI, it is not changing the use of the site. It still would be public, semi-public, institutional, which is how we would zone a school. Development of regional impacts are remnants from not too long ago. I'm sorry, Mr. Sherman's worked on these a lot up in the state, but they were large developments. They were so large commercial, large residential, they were going to impact the region. So there was quite a very complicated process to go through to get approval. In Citrus County, it was 1,000 houses or more development triggered that. Citrus Hills is one example. They are a development of regional impact. This is another one. This allows over 1,200 homes on that left side there, on the county area, not the right side. If you go down Turkey Oak today, you'll see a sign saying for sale, and that you're allowed that 1,200 homes entitlement. It is allowed by this development of regional impact. I put a little history of the DRI in the backup for you in the staff report, but DRI statutes have been dismantled almost completely. It's very, very hard to trigger a new DRI, and existing DRIs go through this process, the local government process, to change them. So staff has no concerns. The PSI designation is appropriate for the school use. That's it.
Thank you, Joanna. Questions from the board?
I have one for you.
Commissioner Barnes?
I know it's probably in the packet and I just didn't see it. Being that it's part county and part the city of Crystal River, would they need permission? Is this solely based on our decision or the BOCC, or does the city of Crystal River have a say-so in this after we make our decision?
This particular site is not located in the city. Part of the school site itself, where the school's constructed, is, but this particular part isn't. So the entire area that you're being asked to consider today is located in the county jurisdiction.
Thank you.
And I believe that there was a letter in there from Ken Frink.
Yes, saying that they had no concerns. Yes, that's City of Crystal River. Thank you.
Other questions from the board?
It's a big packet.
Thank you, Joanna. This time I will open the hearing to the public for public comment. For entertaining public comment. Seeing no one, I will close the public portion of this hearing and return the hearing back to the board for discussion and possible action. I think this is pretty straightforward. I have no objection.
I'm in favor.
Good. I'll entertain a motion.
For the purpose of a motion.
Commissioner Barnes.
The Planning and Development Commission finds application number CPA/AA-21-13 consistent with the Citrus County Comprehensive Plan and Citrus County Land Development Code, and that this board recommends approval of the application to the Board of County Commissioners based on the evidence and testimony presented in the staff report and conclusions regarding this petition.
I have a
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Barnes, a second by Commissioner Bramlett. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is unanimous. Time is right for hearing on V 21-07.
Yes, the applicant is requesting a single-family dwelling having a 33-foot setback from the mean high water line and a 44-foot setback from the center line of the right-of-way. This is an aerial view of the subject property. And this is a view of the subject property looking from West Blue Springs Court. Looking south on West Blue Springs and looking across. This is looking across the canal which is to the north from the site. And the site plan as submitted by the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant please come forward?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Julia Finkbeiner. This is my husband, Scott Solka. We own the property at 10151 Blue Springs Court, which is, as you saw, 500 square foot trailer. Because of our irregular shaped lot and the variance codes that we have to meet, we are asking for variance exception on both the front and the back. It has been very difficult for us to put a modest rectangular home on that property without this request. Our first meeting with you, it was back in June, and we presented what we thought was a very aesthetically pleasing plan, but I think we learned, and due to some negative feedback back then, we asked for continuance. We have owned this property for 6 years. We have enjoyed living in Homosassa. We love our neighbors, and we are now just looking to replace the home. Not only do we need more room from a 500 square foot home, but we'd like to set ourselves up for retirement. And honestly, the trailer needs to be replaced before it must be replaced. It's an eyesore for us and for our neighbors, and I think that's probably evidenced by the overwhelming support and the letters that have been sent from our neighbors on our behalf. At our last meeting, there was some resistance from the board for the waterfront variance, which at that time was in one corner of the home, 15 feet. The request was for 15 feet. But there was also some indication at that time that there might be some flexibility on some front variances requests, knowing, I think you guys all saw that the shape of the lot is very irregular. So here we are, back with a different proposal, and I just want to assure you that we have taken your feedback, and we've really given this some due diligence. We've met with permitting, we've met with Mr. Hockadell and the builder, and we're hoping that the new plan somehow demonstrates to you guys how willing we are to adjust, and I hope you can see some reason to grant these minimal requests. So we have a double lot, as you can see, and we are only asking for a 1,497 square foot home with a front and back porch. I looked at the Citrus County Permitting website and just did a search on the 2021 home sizes for the permits that were being issued for both modular and singular family homes in Citrus County in 2021, and the average size is 2,010 square feet. So this is much lower than that. It's 1,497. And because of that lot size, the irregular shape, we are actually just trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. You can see the front in orange there. We're asking for the 4-foot variance to accommodate just a portion of the front porch, the front landing. And that is needed because the building will be elevated, and it's for safety requirements. That butts right up against that 19-foot line, and because of that and how the back of the home butts up to the 35-foot line, we're also asking for a 2-foot variance in the back to serve as a buffer. You can see how tight we are, and this is really just to help us not return to the board in case there is some issue with the site plan and, you know, we end up needing a portion of that buffer. So if the request is granted, we'll be 33 feet from the water with that 2-foot request, and we'll be 19 feet from the right-of-way with the 4-foot request. Just something I want to note on the front variance, the normal right-of-way setback, as you know, is 25 feet. But LDC section 10-620 allows one to use the average of the 6 closest homes to determine the right-of-way in special circumstances, and this is one of those. So initially, we created our new build plan for this presentation on the previous staff report. And at that time, the previous staff report indicated that we should be 19.5 feet from the right-of-way. And it was during a meeting with Mr. Hockdell and the permitting department that we all realized at that time the wrong homes were used in the original staff report. And so what we thought we were going in with, we wanted to come in with just a 1/2 foot variance request, but now it's 4 feet because of the home selection this time for that LDC code. And I just say that because it's really just a matter of schematics of which 6 homes you're choosing to determine what that right-of-way variance is. And I mean, it's just so close. And so anyhow, here we're back with the 4-front variance. I don't know if this can be submitted at this late date, and I do have the numbers here if it can be, but if not, I mean, you let me know and I'll give you the numbers. But I went on the county appraiser's website and just did an analysis of the homes, the 6 homes to the north side and the west side, and the 6 homes to the east side of ours. And after the build, what I did is I took the square foot of the homes and compared it to lot size square foot. So after our new build, we will have a ratio of 6.7 square feet of land per building, and the average of the 11 closest properties is 5.0 land to structure. So we're still 1.7 ratio higher. If you include all the porches and the covered areas and everything, we'll sit at 4.6 feet per land square foot, and the average on our block is 3.9. So again, I can share this with you. I just don't know. I'm learning, and I don't know at this late date if you're able to accept it. You tell me. Also, one other point that I want to make is we're not asking for the full 4 feet in the front. We're only asking for the porch where the land, or for the section where the front landing is. So I hope that you understand, you know, how willing we have been to work with the code and the variance code for this exception, and I just hope you see that and you're reasonable with us in granting the request.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Commissioner Bramlett?
I didn't know if staff was.
Go right ahead. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So I need to kind of understand this a little bit, and I think you explained it. So really, currently the way that site plan shows, the rear of the property is not falling within the 35-foot setback, correct?
When you say the rear?
The property towards the water side, the back of the home, the back of the improvement is not falling based on that site plan.
No, it's not. It's within the 35, but we're threading the needle.
I understand.
So what we were proposing was that 2-foot buffer in the back, just in case we have a little bit of wiggle room in case there's not a measurement of a survey or something that's not right. We don't have to say, oh, now we can't do something. We have to go back.
Okay.
So it's just to give us a little bit of elbow room.
And then the gray shaded area, that is the existing footprint. And what is that in that spot right there?
Well, we kept that gray as a potential to build in that area, but we would have a screen porch.
That large area with the steps going, you have the arrows pointing and showing where the access is up and down,
Yes.
that's a rear deck with a
Yes.
porch off the back of the home.
Yes,
And it's falling within the existing footprint, which doesn't
Yes.
require the variance.
yes.
Okay.
Other questions? Questions from staff?
No, thank you, sir.
Thank you. May we hear from staff?
Good morning.
Morning, Joe.
Joe Hockadell, Principal Planner. So, as you're aware, you have heard this application once before. It was previously heard on July 15th. The application was continued and the applicant has revised their request and it's coming back in front of you. They are requesting a 33-foot waterfront setback and a 44-foot setback from the center line of the right-of-way, which is about 19 feet from the edge. On these two properties, they're about 0.23 acres in size. And as you can see, there is an existing mobile home on lot 23. The existing mobile home is about 500 square feet, and it does have some additions and porches and decks that have been added back in the 70s and the 80s. And it has a total footprint of about 1,113 square feet. So here you can see the adjacent parcel. It's going to be used as part of the home site. This is a view of the dock and the deck on the back of the property. And these are some of the properties across the street. So this was the previous request. They were requesting a 2,290 square foot footprint home with a 15-foot waterfront setback on one side, 18 feet waterfront on the other side, and an 18-foot right-of-way setback, 43 feet from the center line. The applicant has now revised that. They're requesting a 33-foot waterfront setback, and as Ms. Finkbeiner stated, that's really more of a 2-foot buffer area, so that they have a little bit of wiggle room for placing that home. And they're requesting a 44-foot setback from the center line of the right-of-way. And what you can see here, and Commissioner Bramblett kind of pointed it out, the gray area is the existing footprint of the existing mobile home, and then the red area is the available building envelope. So you can see the applicant has attempted to place everything within the existing footprint and within the available building envelope, with the exception of the front stair. And so they have reduced the encroachment, they have reduced their footprint, and they are mostly within their available building area. However, this request is still not a minimal request, and so not all the findings of fact have been found to be positive. And so here you can see this was the previous request compared to the available building envelope, and this is the proposed.
Thank you, Joe. Questions from the board?
I have a question.
Commissioner Bramlett.
So, almost all of that property falls within that building envelope. And what we're looking at right there, they're just asking for that little bit of a buffer on the back. It falls within the existing footprint, which we don't even have to consider, correct?
Right.
And then the purple against the orange, like that tiny little bit of that front entry right there is considered not a minimal request by the staff? Is that the portion that we're talking about, or are we bringing that additional 2 feet buffer just in case to thread the needle into that minimal request decision or thought?
The minimal request is really more of the request in its entirety. So the home could be reduced, things could be moved around. That's where the not a minimal request comes from.
Right. So what I'll say in this particular instance is typically I agree with the staff, but on this particular application, I disagree. I do believe that this is a fairly minimal request. They could not need that 33 feet in the back at all. I don't know how people are, if it fits, and then they want to say, well, they gave us 33 so we can move it back, and then the front doesn't fit or doesn't need the buffer. You see what I mean? Because we're dealing with, then we would only have 2 feet in the front instead of 4 feet. It just kind of, semantics, front or back, in my opinion, I feel like it's a minimal request, so.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions from the board? Commissioner Scragg?
I absolutely agree. I think it absolutely, as close as possible, fits into that envelope.
Thank you.
I'll support this because I think that the applicant has shown diligence in trying to comply as best they can within the building envelope they're allowed. And they put a lot of hard work into it. I think they should be rewarded.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I do have suggested conditions,
Okay,
if you'd like
Joe,
to hear
I'm
them.
sorry, my head was on a
We
swivel there.
haven't, we haven't done the public yet, so let's.
I know.
Yeah.
Kinda jumped. Joe, go ahead.
Sure. So condition 1, the single-family dwelling must maintain a 33-foot setback to the mean high water line and a 44-foot setback to the center line of the right-of-way, 19 feet from the edge of the right-of-way of West Blue Springs Court, as outlined on the site plan received by Land Development, date stamp September 10th, 2021. Number 2, a berm, swale, or other engineered stormwater system approved by the Engineering Division must be installed and maintained. 3, erosion control measures shall be installed to protect water bodies, wetlands, and/or adjacent properties before starting land disturbance activities, as per Citrus County Code Section 42-172C. And number 4, a tie-in survey demonstrating compliance with these conditions must be submitted to and approved by Land Development within 30 calendar days of establishing the lowest habitable floor level.
Can you say 3 again, please?
Sure. Erosion control measures shall be installed to protect water bodies, wetlands, and/or adjacent properties before starting land disturbance activities, as per Citrus County Code Section 42-172C.
Thank you.
Have you reviewed those conditions with the applicant?
I don't believe I sent those to the applicant.
Did you hear his conditions?
4 is a tie-in survey demonstrating compliance with these conditions. So to make sure that the structure, once it's placed, is within the footprint allowed. And it has to be submitted to and approved by Land Development within 30 days of establishing the lowest habitable floor level.
Establishing what?
The lowest habitable floor level.
Any other questions? Thank you, Joe. At this time. No, she was just writing down what his comments were. At this time, I'll open the hearing to the public for comment. Time for public comment on this application. Seeing no one, I'll close the public portion of this hearing and return the hearing back to the board for discussion and possible action. And I will begin by echoing Commissioner Bramlett's comments. I have consistently voted against many of these waterfront setback applications, but in this case, I believe the applicant has demonstrated more than good faith in this application, so I plan to support this application. Other comments from the board?
Yeah, I think they did a good job fitting it in within the existing envelope. I'd have to say that a pie-shaped lot is not an unusual shaped lot for waterfront property. It's probably the norm rather than the exception. But yeah, I think they did a good job. I vote in support of this.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Commissioner Royce.
For the purpose of a motion on V-21-707, the Planning and Development Commission finds the application number V-21-07 consistent with the Citrus County Land Development Code and is in keeping with the intent and policies of Citrus County Comprehensive Plan, and this board approves with conditions of the application based upon the evidence and testimony presented here and the staff report and the conclusions regarding this petition with the following conditions as were read before.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Scragg. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
We have Commissioner Bass and Commissioner Barnes opposed. Motion carries. Any other business?
We got another?
I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry.
Waiting patiently till the end.
I'm sorry. Time has arrived for hearing V 21-11. My apologies.
Yes, the applicant is requesting a single-family dwelling having a 15-foot setback from the jurisdictional wetland line and 18 feet from the mean high water line. This is an aerial view of the subject property. And this is a view of the property from South Sea Otter Path. This is looking south on Sea Otter and looking west. This is looking across South Sea Otter Path and looking across the canal from the subject property. The site plan as submitted by the applicant. Thank you.
Would the applicant please come forward?
Hello, I'm Albert Josselon. This is my wife, Tori Josselon. We were here 2 months ago with y'all, and we submitted our first plan, and we were recommended by the board to turn our building. Was the final suggestion to move it behind the 35-foot line there. You can see the dotted line. So we took your suggestion exactly as it was, and we did exactly as you asked. And so we're here to resubmit because we moved it behind the 35-foot high water line there.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Questions from staff?
No, thank you.
I have some
Thank you.
questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm trying to like, the variance request is for we're looking for 18 feet on the water and 15 feet on the wetland.
Yeah, I don't know
Where is
why-
the 18
yeah.
feet at, right? Is that, okay, so it's on the the bottom of that picture, I guess, so that's the south side?
Yeah, I think, yeah, because that's what I didn't understand either, because the last meeting you guys asked was to move behind the 35-foot, and I asked about the wetlands area, and you all suggested that, I mean, it's yard anyway, but just to move it behind the 35-foot, I asked the same thing when I was up here, if that made a difference, and I followed exactly what you guys told me to do.
I was just having a hard time seeing the water. Like, I guess I'm looking at your site plan.
The
Is
water's
that-
out
That's a little
the,
dock. That's a little dock, so it's on the south side, the water. Because on the plat, it shows a lot to the south.
yeah, it is a lot. So
11.
what the neighbor has, a little cut-in for their boat. It's not a dock, it's just a cut-in, like a cement boat frame out thing.
Uh-huh.
You
Like
know,
a
holds
slip.
Yeah, slip, yes,
Okay.
yep.
And that's what that 18 feet, 18.4 feet is from?
It's 21.8. I think that's the old.
No, that's the new one. It's turned sideways.
Oh, they put another. Okay. Yeah, I have. This one's turned sideways too behind the line. I think that's the other one. We submitted a couple times, but I have 21.8 and 15 feet at the back corner. We slid it and got it behind the line.
Mr.
So-
Chairman, if you would,
I saw that.
well, there's,
I guess either.
there's
I mean,
a,
either
it's
one.
not even really a slip, I don't know what, it's just a break. in the kind of seawall.
Okay. So are we asking, did you say it was a 21 foot or an 18 foot? Because now I'm confused.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go by that drawing, if you'd like, yeah. 20.2 at the front, 18.4 in the middle, and 10 in
And
the back.
and the water is all along that side right there. It goes all the way to where that little dock is that's drawn on there.
Yeah, see the tip of, where the 18.4 ends is where that is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then that's where the water stops?
That's where the water stops, yeah,
Okay.
for the boat slip, yeah.
Further questions? You good, David?
I'm just sort of, yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking out loud to myself right now. I mean, I know we had one with the wetlands was on the other side like that, and we requested that they put it closer to the wetlands, I think. I don't remember if that was this one, but
That was this, yeah, it was your suggestion.
Well, there was another,
Yeah.
we
okay.
heard another one.
Oh, okay,
since
I
then,
got you,
believe.
yeah.
And the home was even closer to
Oh,
the
okay.
wetlands, which sort of, I think we determined that that particular time was more desirable than being closer to the water.
That's exactly the words you used, yeah,
Right.
when we were here last.
Okay.
Because it's literally, if you looked at it, it looks like a front yard. It's mowed grass
Right.
and some trees. It's not.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Time to hear from staff.
Good morning. Joe Hockadell.
Morning, Joe, again.
Again. Yeah. And this application you're hearing again as well, it was previously heard on August 19th, and it was continued by the board. The applicant did resubmit realigning the home and relocating on the property. Again, this is a view of the subject property. It is about 0.3 acres in size. And you can see it is partially cleared, but it does still have some tree cover left on it. This is a view of the existing seawall, which is pointed out on the site plan. And this is the neighbor's boat slip, Commissioner Bramblett. This is what you're referring to. That's what's on the plan. The 18 feet is to the very corner of that boat slip, the concrete cap. So this was the previous request. As you can see, there is a wetland line in green. It takes up a good chunk of the northwest corner of the property, goes all the way to the back, and then runs down along the seawall. And then they have the mean high water line there located on the concrete seawall. But again, the neighbor's boat slip does come in closer. So they are requesting now 15 feet from that wetland line, which is the minimum from our comprehensive plan, and 18 feet at the closest point to the neighbor's boat slip. So here's the available building envelope. As you can see, it is very irregularly shaped. It's approximately 640 square feet in size, and so based on the wetland setback, waterfront setback on this property, it does appear that they do have a hardship because of those setbacks. Again, they are requesting a 1,400 square foot footprint, and so while they have adjusted the site, it may not be a minimal request. And so not all the findings of fact are positive findings.
Thank you, Joe. Questions from the board?
I have a question.
Commissioner Bramlett?
Speaking in regard to the findings of fact, fact number 8, can you look at that for me, please?
Yes, sir.
The application is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan as discussed in this staff report. And then on page 3 of 5 of the staff report on the consistency with the comprehensive plan, the application is consistent with the comprehensive plan goals, policies, and standards. Which one of those is correct?
So it does meet the 15-foot setback to a wetland. And they have shown a berm on the site plan, but they haven't really addressed stormwater, so we don't know how that's gonna be taken care of.
So
it should say inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. I apologize.
on that particular, it is inconsistent, and the inconsistency is they haven't shown a berm or a swale on the site plan.
Well, they showed a berm, but they haven't addressed how they're gonna meet stormwater.
Okay, and would stormwater be required at the time of permitting?
Yes,
They would be required to show that anyway, they just didn't show it in this particular instance.
that's correct.
So really, had they shown stormwater, we would have only one of the 8 findings of fact to be false, correct?
Negative.
Negative,
That's correct.
okay. I'm just trying to make sure I have my brain correct.
Other questions from the board?
Joel, the distance from the,
Commissioner Stone?
on the bottom right-hand corner of the proposed building to the seawall on the main canal, that's probably in excess of 35 feet, would you not say?
I believe that the line shown on the site plan is supposed to be the 35-foot setback from the outside edge of that seawall.
Okay.
And so, yes, it would be 35 feet from the seawall. I don't know if this is going to work. Oop, I think I saw it. There is a
Okay.
little spot right here that would be closer, and then there is the adjacent property's boat slip. So those are water setbacks that are closer, but from the seawall on the main canal, yes, it would be 35 feet.
I see. Okay, so, with that, other than with their revised plan actually meets the 35-foot setback from the main canal as well as the 15-foot setback from the jurisdictional wetland line, right?
Correct.
Okay. I would have to say, in my opinion, I think that the applicant has substantially met the requirements, and I would support this application.
Okay, other questions for staff while Joe is at the dais, or the podium?
And
Thank you,
Mr.
Jim.
Chairman, I also have suggested conditions prepared for this one as well, if you'd like to hear
Would
them.
you like to read those, please?
Sir. Number 1, the single-family dwelling must maintain a 15-foot setback from the jurisdictional wetland line and 18-foot setback from the mean high water line, as outlined on the site plan received by Land Development Division, date stamped August 25th, 2021. Number 2, a berm swale system or other appropriate stormwater management system acceptable to County Engineering Division is required to be installed at time of permitting. Number 3, erosion control measures shall be installed to protect water bodies, wetlands, and or adjacent properties before starting land disturbance activities as per Citrus County Code Section 42-17D2C. And number 4, a tie-in survey demonstrating compliance with these conditions must be submitted to and approved by the Land Development Division within 30 calendar days of establishing the lowest habitable floor level.
Thank you, Joe. Have you reviewed those conditions with the applicant?
No, sir, but I can give him a copy of this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Joe. Questions of Joe regarding the conditions? Okay, thank you, Joe. Time has arrived for public input on this hearing. I will open the hearing to the public for comments. Time for public comments. Seeing no one, I will close the public portion of this hearing and then return the hearing back to the board for discussion and possible action.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Barnes.
I believe that the law, as we put it, the code, was not put in with the intent to prevent homeowners from building their dream home or building on the property that they purchase. I believe that it was put in the code, the Land Development Code, and the law, as we call it, to protect the wetlands, our conservation areas, our waterways, and our nature. I typically have a problem with something being built on this close to the water. I do understand they've been in front of us twice, and they've really exercised that property. The property's probably pretty tired of being exercised, actually. But one thing I do want to say, is what I think Mr. Bramblett asked me a few weeks ago about, the building envelope, and my opinion, and that was what I left out. I did not include the main purpose of the code is not to prevent them from designing or building their dream house. So with that being said, I am actually in support, I know, don't pass out, of this, this application. I think that the building envelope, I've been to that property, I think twice now, maybe 3 times. I think they've exercised everything they needed to do, and I would be in support of this.
Other comments? I'll entertain a motion. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, for the purpose of a motion.
Commissioner Bramlett.
The Planning and Development Commission finds application number V-21-11 consistent with the Citrus County Land Development Code and is in keeping with the intent and policies of the Citrus County Comprehensive Plan, and that this board approves with the conditions of the application based upon the evidence and testimony presented and the staff report and conclusions regarding this petition with the following conditions as discussed.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, by Commissioner Royce. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, I know, and much like Mr. Barnes said, in this particular board in general, we're all usually in agreement with these variance requests. The minimal request, that's sort of a subjective opinion, and then the, this particular variance is probably one of the few variances that I've seen that only maybe with the correction, and we added it with the condition of the berm or swale that needs to be, we would have 7 of the 8 findings of fact to be positive on this one. I don't know that there's been many more that I've seen that had that many. Even the last variance request that we approved had less of the findings of fact positive. So consistency is very important for me. I don't want anyone to ever think that I waver on my decisions from month to month, year to year, however. I mean, I want to let everyone know that we take each particular application on its own merit and based on the findings and the evidence and everything and thinking it over, that's why I'd be in favor of this one, and some of the other ones that were a little more egregious, we were opposed to.
Thank you for the input. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That concludes the regular order of business. Ms. Coutu?
Yeah, your next meeting on November 18th, you have 3 applications. I know with holidays coming, if you cannot attend, we do have a meeting on December 14th, which is getting somewhat close to Christmas. Let Cheryl know if you can't come. We do right now have, I'm sorry, not December 14th, December 16th. We have 5 applications on that agenda, so if you can't attend that, let her know, please. Thank you.
As I previously stated, I will not be in attendance at the next meeting, November the 18th. I wish you all well, and I noticed that there are no waterfront setback applications on that agenda. So, I wish you all well. Ms. Lynn, do you have anything else? Ms. Lynn?
I do not. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to attend in person.
Thank you. Hope you're feeling better soon.
Thank you.
Normally, we don't have public input, but Mr. Krzyzewski, Serwinski, I have a son-in-law named Kajelski, so I just got to get it right. In time, I will.
Well, thank you for hearing me. Mike Serwinski, environmental consultant, professional address 2716 South Lecanto Highway. I just want to give you a little food for thought. You had a application come before you that requested some animal use, horses, whatever. That is on wetlands and also can be considered on the waterfront. Marion County has something called, and the Department of Agriculture has Best Management Practices Manual for hobby horses. In Marion County, because of the sensitivity of water and springs, even in the uplands, they recommend that hobby horses follow best management practices. And it's mainly manure management, because the manure, its nutrients and E. coli get into the aquifer and have the potential to adversely impact the springs. They consider that number 1 or 2 in Marion County is agricultural use as the biggest polluters or addition of nitrogen to the spring system. So on that particular application, although I don't believe, Michael, it's in the Land Development Code, it's something that we may want to consider, especially for applications so close to the waterfront, that has a potential for runoff, for adding nutrients, animal nutrients, and E. coli to our water bodies. Now, that particular site looked like it had a bit of a wetland buffer, but I still would like some sort of consideration for that, because we are here to mainly protect our water bodies and our springs. And you could look at Marion County for some fairly good examples on manure management. I know it's not a good topic to talk about manure, but in this case, when you're managing animals, I think it's something that's appropriate. We're spending a lot of money to get septic systems off of our water bodies, and I think really number 2 is agricultural runoff. And the way to address it is through those best management practices plans that are, so we're not rewriting anything that hasn't been accepted somewhere else. And thank you for your time.
Yep, thank you for your input.
Mr. Chairman, I got something I wanted to,
Commissioner Dixon.
as far as the emergency generators go, at the fueling stations, I just want to point out that the last time we had a major power outage, there are 2 things that need to have diesel fuel during a power outage. One is a generator at a nursing home or a hospital, and the other is a power truck, for the electric company to get the power back on. And the last time we didn't have any way to get fuel to the trucks were lined up to get fuel so that they could go out and repair the power grid. And the school board is currently converting over to regular fuel from diesel, and we have been the primary source of diesel for the county, because the county now has only 1 fueling station. They've gone to using private fueling stations for the county vehicles. So if we don't have any diesel fuel and we have a major power outage, and in addition we have people coming up the Suncoast Parkway to shelter here, we're going to have a mess. So I think that it would be worthwhile to consider requiring all fueling stations to have emergency backup generators to pump fuel. I think that's something that needs to be considered. I think they do that everywhere else in South Florida.
Certainly a good point. Any other business for the good of the order? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Bass?
Second.
Commissioner Stone. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned.
Bye.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn.